Titled this World War II Part 3. Where we left off, we were just talking about Hitler's rise to power. We talked about some of the steps he took to get there, how he, the Reichstag fire, how he took advantage of that, and basically after the death of Hindenburg will combine power and basically become the dictator of Germany. Okay, in 1933 we see the first concentration camp set up. It was set up as a political prison called Dachau, and I'll show you that at a later stage where I actually went there when I went to Germany, and I took a little home video, so you will actually get to see that. In 1934 he will eliminate the brown shirts. Okay, the brown shirts have grown way too powerful for his taste, and there was actually some rumors that maybe they were going to try to assassinate Hitler at this point. So the brown shirts will be eliminated. They basically have to take a pledge to Hitler or die, and they will be replaced by the SS, which also wore black shirts, the Schutzstaffel, okay, which will be his protective squadron, his elite guard, and that's probably you've heard about them more than the brown shirts for that reason. So after that, Hindenburg dies. I said we talked about that. Hitler will become the dictator and take full control of Germany at this point. He'll combine the office of the Chancellor and the President, and will take total control. Okay. Now, some of the interesting people, some of the big people during Hitler's reign, Heinrich Himmler, he will be, there he is right there. He is in charge of the political police force, which basically will terrorize anybody that goes against Hitler's beliefs, what they believe that Nazi Germany is all about, and those people will disappear into those political prisons such as Dachau. That will be called, the secret police will be called the Gestapo, and just the mention of that was terrifying to many people in Germany. Göring is the next guy. Hermann Göring, he was a World War I pilot. He will be in charge of the German Luftwaffe. I love saying that. The Luftwaffe was the German Air Force. Okay, and you'll see Göring in a lot of political cartoons and some things, and it's really easy to identify him. Number one, he's kind of chubby. Number two, he's always got a bunch of medals on. Okay, and America believed that he was quite the braggart, and you'll always see him with all his medals on, mostly from World War I. He was a pretty good pilot. So we'll hear about him some more. Oops. And then we got, this is one of the creepiest guys, Goebbels. And he was the Minister of Propaganda. It was his job to build up support for the Nazis in Berlin. And a lot of the cartoons that we'll see down the road, even songs, he even made movies. He actually made a movie about the Titanic. Obviously supporting German culture and things like that. Everything was built up to build up that Aryan race. And here's a typical political cartoon or a poster where basically you see the perfect Aryan child, you know, looking up to Hitler. You're going to see that. Okay, that's what this was all about. Goebbels himself followed Hitler like a cult. It was part of that inner circle, and killed himself as well, like Hitler did at the end of the war. And not only that, but he had his wife kill their children before the Russians got to the bunker. He was in the same bunker that Hitler was in. And I believe the wife actually smothered the children. Yeah. And 1935, we see the Nuremberg Laws. This is the first step that we really see when the state takes action against the Jewish population. Okay, the Nuremberg Laws stripped the Jewish population of their German citizenship. You were not allowed to marry a Jewish person if you were a non-Jewish person. They clarified the requirements for citizenship in the Third Reich, which is what they call their government now, to assure the purity of German blood and German honor. Okay, this basically clarifies the position of a Jewish person in the Third Reich. Shortly thereafter, we see they'll produce this, which is basically shows you what is acceptable. Later, we'll see labels that Jewish people would have to wear, along with any other minority group would have to wear as well. And then the first violent action. There were other violent actions before this, but this is a mass violent action. 1938, you guys have heard of this, Kristallnacht. This was also called the Night of Broken Glass. During this period, November 9th and 10th, 1938, the Nazi thugs throughout Germany and Austria looted and destroyed Jewish homes, stores, synagogues. This is a picture of a synagogue after Kristallnacht. Just absolutely brutal. Mass arrests of Jews followed, and we start to see them put into those concentration camps for labor. We also see a mass exodus out of Germany for a lot of Jewish families as well, including many famous scientists such as Einstein and writers and things like that. So they can get out, they're going to get out. In the Munich Conference, okay, this is where, after Hitler becomes more aggressive, which we'll talk about in a second, the leaders of Britain and France met with the Germans, basically said, listen, you got to stop this, and they agreed to let Germany have what is now, or what was then part of the Sudetenland, which is basically western Czechoslovakia. And Hitler said, okay, let me have this, and then we're done. We need that Lebensraum, that living space. And at that point, everybody walked away thinking that they just saved the world, and as we're going to find out, very, very wrong. All right, some specific events leading to World War II. We'll see this. A lot of historians, or I shouldn't say a lot, but some historians believe that World War II started with this event. In 1931, Japan invaded Manchuria in China. Basically, long story short, Japan staged an attack on one of their Japanese-owned railroads in Manchuria. They'll then blame it on the Manchurians and said they have to send their troops in to protect their railroads. Okay, in reality, they blew up one little section of track and it bent the track barely. But that's what they're going to use to invade. They will then set up a puppet state called Manchukuo. Japan needed those raw materials in China. Okay, the people of Manchuria suffer greatly. This is a political poster, obviously, from the people of Manchuria. That's not how it really was. People were not happy. The people of Manchuria were slaughtered by the thousands. So once again, the League of Nations steps in and slaps Japan on the wrist. Japan literally gets out and walks out of the meeting. And that's it. That's all they do. Slap on the wrist. They can't do anything. They don't have any power. We'll see the same thing. In 1935, Italy attacks Ethiopia. Okay, Ethiopia, going back through history, was a big black eye for Italy because if you remember in the partition of Africa in the early 1800s, Ethiopia was the only African country to remain independent because they actually beat Italy. Well, Mussolini wants to rewrite the history books, and let's get that out of our history, so he invades Ethiopia. League of Nations condemns it, but that's it. Don't do it again, okay? Not going to work that way. It just doesn't have any power. Germany starts the rearming, which is a direct violation of the Treaty of Versailles. Hitler actually, as soon as he took office, stopped making all payments for the war reparations, which is another violation of the Treaty of Versailles, and he'll start using that money to build up their military. And they rearm themselves. They actually make themselves have the strongest military on the continent, and really pretty much in the world at this point. All against the Treaty of Versailles, and once again, nobody did anything. Nobody stopped it. People believe that the treaty might have been too rough, and basically they didn't have a stomach for war at this moment. And hard to blame them. We're about 20 years removed from World War I, so still very fresh in everybody's minds. In 1936, Germany and Italy, along with Japan, create the Axis powers, through their own alliances. So, here we go. 36, we're seeing the lines drawn in the sand there. So we see the Axis powers created through the alliances once again. The Spanish Civil War begins around this time. Francisco Franco will emerge as the dictator of Spain, and Hitler and Mussolini actually help him rise to power, but they're going to use the Spanish Civil War more as a dress rehearsal than anything else. So they'll use that to basically practice their new forms and new tactics of war, including the dive bombers and things like that from the Luftwaffe and the Blitzkrieg. And, for instance, a town called Guernica, Guernica, Guernica is just basically wiped off the face of the map just for practice, unfortunately for that. So they're going to use their new technology. Germany then occupies the Rhineland, which is that area that France received as a part of the Treaty of Versailles. Nobody does anything. It's supposed to be a demilitarized zone. Hitler marches right in. Nothing. 1937, Japan declares war on China. We actually lost a ship in this. Japan apologized, even paid retribution to the families of the 3 Americans that were killed. But China is getting invaded by Japan, and nobody's going to do anything about it, including the United States. I always like to ask those what-if questions. What if they would have stopped it? 1938, Germany occupied Austria, and it's called the Anschluss. The Anschluss is an annexation. What history doesn't tell you is that the leaders of Austria didn't want this to happen, and they actually took a vote, and they were going to make it public. But before it became public, Hitler just marched his troops and acted like it was okay. So the majority of the people of Austria believed that this is what they wanted. This is what the government wanted. But that's not true, But at this point, the troops are in Austria. What are they going to do? It's too late. So Austria is annexed, and in reality, he's from Austria, so it's not that far out of the realm of possibility or belief either. He was pretty popular in Austria as well. Hitler then demands we get into the Sudetenland, and that's where we have the Munich Conference, which I already explained. There's the Sudetenland here. They believe the leaders of Britain, Chamberlain, and France, Daladier, really believe that they avoided the war, but in actuality, they're appeasing him. They're just appeasing that dictator, in this case Hitler, and he's just growing more and more confident. He's like, hey, they're not going to do anything. Why should I stop? They're not going to do anything. So, and we know the answer to that. Does appeasement work? No. We've seen how we've reacted to some things in response to that, and we'll see that. Here they promised nothing else. 1939, boom, Germany occupies the rest of Czechoslovakia. Hitler's proven right again. They said they won't do it. Says they'll lead the war, but nobody does anything. Italy is growing braver too. They'll invade Albania, part of that land that they were promised after World War I. And then the big shocker, Hitler and Stalin agreed to a non-aggression pact. Okay, and this was huge. Hitler was trying to avoid a two-front war, and with this agreement, he has that. Okay, he's learning from the mistakes made from World War I. He signs a non-aggression pact with Stalin. You can see some of these cartoons. This is my favorite one, Stalin in a wedding dress. But, you know, the truth is they both knew that this wasn't going to last, but they're buying themselves time. Hitler needed time to conquer the rest of Europe, and Russia needed time to mobilize and get their people ready for the German war machine. So they both win. They hated each other. They knew it wasn't going to last. You know, nobody should have been shocked when it didn't, but you know, he got what he wanted. That's going to shock everybody. Then, with Hitler having that promise, he invades Poland, knowing full well that this is going to cause France and Britain and the other allied countries have to step in. All right, that's it for that. Stay classy, Vandalia.